Well, so I guess I have the job to introduce myself because they missed out on my person. So I should be orchestrating this new session. And I have a question for you. We have just been part of the panel discussion around the value of corporate travel. And I think the data tells one story. But what is the market telling us? Is it the same story or is it a different story? What do you think? Can I have thumbs up or down? So the data is telling one story. Is the market telling us another story? Yes, yes. A lot of people doubting. How can I help you to make a decision on an easy question? So in this session, we will go beyond the limits of the data to examine the corporate travel distribution value chain through a broader multi-stakeholder lens. Not from one perspective, not from one data set, but from the realities playing out across corporate buyers, platforms, intermediaries, and hotel suppliers every single day. And here's how we will do this fast and focused. So I will be setting up the business context, and I will just ask 5 questions to the different panelists. And please stay tuned because we will also be asking for your participation through voting or asking for your opinion in different moments, okay? So have your cell phones ready and connected to Wi-Fi because you're gonna be needing it. Ready?
Ready.
So let me set the context. And I'm picking up on some of the insights from the value of the corporate travel study that has just been presented. So corporate travel has clearly become a value-based negotiated business. Here are some numbers. Plus 6% year-over-year growth in 2025. Plus 8% projected growth in global travel spend as per the Global Business Travel Association Business Travel Index. And 30% of that global travel spend corresponds to lodging. By any standard, this is a highly attractive and a strategic segment for everyone in this room, right? Thumbs up, yes? 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 I see a lot of people nodding, but not really with the energy to show the thumbs. Interesting. So, and yet the data reveals something more complex. So between 2023 and 2025, discounted rate room nights and revenues grew by roughly 3%. Corporate negotiated rates declined in volume while increasing in revenue, not even a 1 single percentage point. So this is raising some uncomfortable but still necessary questions. So is discounted rate growth being fueled by corporate travelers booking through multi-source platforms? What do you think? Thumbs up? I mean, I need the green ones. Hey, we need something to shake up the energy here. Did you lose your banners? You still have them? Right. So are those bookings telling us that corporate negotiated rates are not competitive enough? Yeah, that's more provocative, right? And are hotel chains being able to access the right data? That's a lot of no's. Okay. So I think let's get started. And one thing, we wanted to start with the corporate buyer in the center. So we engaged with Christine Corrigan, General Manager, Crew and Corporate Travel from Delta Airlines. Unfortunately, she cannot be here with us today. However, she has kindly shared her insights in advance so we can guide the conversation around that. So we asked Christine, how have your core business contexts and priorities evolved over the past 3 years, and what has led to multi-sourcing becoming essential? And she came up with 3 crystal clear things. One was adaptability, so she had the real need to adapt to the changes of the workforce. Frictionless compliance, so it's not only about reducing off-channel spend, but doing that in a frictionless way. And booking user experience. So it was really needed to improve the booking experience. And this is somehow what is being guiding us to prepare for this conversation. And I think the value for us was more on all the conversations we had. So we expect to be able to transmit this value to you. So based on those questions, I would like to ask you guys, so how those evolving customer expectations have reshaped the way you do business and your operations? Can we start with you, Brian?
Sure, happy to. Really great to be here. Thanks for having me. So I'll just lead by saying, Navan, who I'm representing today, really was early in the multi-source ecosystem, adding in some API functionality with some OTAs many years ago. And at the time, there was a bit of a bad rap, I think, to multi-sourcing, especially with OTA rates. And I think that narrative is quite stale today. I think to the point that Christine was making via like reducing friction and ensuring spend stays on platform. OTA rates have really been table stakes, I think, throughout the TMC ecosystem by this point. And I think there's two reasons for that. I mean, one is OTAs are just really good at negotiating low rates. Won't get into the how and why of that now. Really good bar conversation for later, probably. But what that means is, the traveler can potentially upgrade their experience by staying at a higher quality hotel than they would have had their policy forced them to stay in a traditional path. And the travel managers recognize this. And so there has been an evolution in the travel manager's perspective on this as well. And then I think secondly, there's also a bit of a payments preference piece that is important, I think, to get across, in that, especially in the down market segment, a lot of travelers working for companies do not have access to a corporate card, and they prefer to prepay. So they're using their boss's corporate card, they're using their own personal card. Oftentimes that type of rate is not available in the GDS, and so there's a payment preference driving the need for multi-sourcing in TMCs. And I think those are very user-centric, good outcomes.
Great. Thank you so much, Brian. What about you, Amram?
Well, not all that dissimilar with Brian at Navan. At BCD, we've been multi-sourcing for a number of years. And similarly, I think in the beginning, right, there were some pain points. There was some friction for travelers, for travel managers. They were trying to go back with suppliers and negotiate. We've overcome a lot of that by working with the OTAs, by working with the hotel suppliers. And it's not just about bringing the right rates to our travelers. It's about so much more. To Brian's point as well around payment, it's around the right amenities, cancel policies, loyalty, and it's just about giving the travelers the choice. And unfortunately, we can't get there through one channel right now. So we do have to bring all of that content in where we feel like we've got the best value to offer our end travelers.
Thank you. And what about the supplier perspective, Keith? How is this impacting?
Keith Harrison from Hilton. My perspective is probably a little bit different. I think that there are definitely some valid reasons why the multi-source situation has come about. And I think that there's always going to be a need to a certain extent to go out and seek other types of rates. I think what we struggle with is the level of disclosure that exists today in many booking tools. And we work pretty hard with our partners to make sure that it's not just a rate-led conversation, and it's not purely about, okay, which rate is the absolute cheapest, because when that other information is not disclosed, it causes real issues with the traveler, particularly when they arrive at the front desk. They suddenly realize they don't have access to the lounge and the loyalty benefits and the things that their corporation has negotiated, like free breakfast and Wi-Fi and parking, et cetera, et cetera. So, the fact that there is a better price out there, which comes with some, draconian commercial terms, doesn't necessarily mean that that is the most valuable option for every single traveler. So I think better disclosure of the inclusions or lack thereof of certain rate products has to be equally considered alongside a rate. So I think there's a lot of work left to be done in the industry to really bring that disclosure full circle.
And are you getting the same right information about the traveler when the booking comes through one channel or another channel?
I think another one of the problems that we see with multi-sourcing is really the inability for us to determine, what company that traveler is with, what TMC they booked through. When that booking is made through an OTA source, all of that production gets credited to the OTA. So it becomes a little bit of a disservice when it comes time to renegotiate corporate contracts, et cetera. Certainly an issue for our business travel sales team. Has specific targets around certain, relationships with corporations. So all of that sort of breaks down in today's environment. So I think there's definitely some challenges. It's not, it's not fully solved from our perspective.
I understand. So I think while we were preparing for this session, we were asking ourselves, are we facing a paradox here? Everything that the multi-source environment can bring, is it really in detriment of something else? And how we can address that paradox, right? And we came up with some elements. So what you see in the screen is on the right would be what you traditionally get with a single source environment, and on the left, what the multi-source environment can bring to the table and what are the limitations there, right? So what are the challenges that you are currently seeing in the multi-source environment that can make you think that we're facing a paradox?
I'm happy to answer. I can start. So I would just say Keith hit the nail on the head with a lot of those comments. I'm not sure about draconian commercials, but just about everything else, I'm 100% on board with. And I think that the question is, what do we do about all of that uncertainty that a traveler may either know or not know going into that check-in, what benefits they're having with their hotel of choice. So I believe that there is everybody in this room can see this in some levels. I'm sure if with a multi-provider setup, we may be getting one message in that says, like, literally in all caps, like DLX-KG CRT-VW-desk, and then another provider sends something in that says, deluxe room space, courtyard view. And then another provider brings in something that says the Lincoln room. And, I ask everybody in this room, are those the room descriptions for the same room, or are they different rooms? And the answer is nobody knows. Nobody knows. And so, the issue of structured content is really the root of the matter here. And, being able to use technology, which, we're all doing, using the LLM and AI technology to be able to start making sense of all of that gibberish in some cases, is how we're going to get there. But the point is, we're in that messy middle. Someone brought that up earlier. Like, we're there right now. It's still happening, but progress is being made.
Right.
Yeah, that structured, normalized content is what we're trying to move to as well. And that means that we have to find some workarounds and kind of do it ourselves, honestly. If the question is, are we sacrificing transparency for choice, though, I think the answer is no for me. We've done so much to clearly label rates that don't have specific benefits, what that rate comes with. Does it come with breakfast? Does it come with loyalty? Does it come with free parking? We know that the end travelers don't always read all of that, but we've had really tough conversations, I think, with the travel managers that we work with. And a lot of them are willing to push back and say, it is on the traveler to read the conditions and understand what they're booking, just like they would if they were booking their personal leisure travel. So I don't think it's choice versus transparency. I think where we at right now is it choice versus overwhelm? Are we overwhelming the end user with too many options? And if we are, and I think the answer is clearly yes, how do we get the right options in front of them? One, how do we define what the right option is? And two, how do we get to a point where we've got better structured content coming in so that we can maybe, clearly display? One thing, like, breakfast sometimes doesn't come through clearly in the GDS, and we're working hard with our friends at the GDSs to overcome that. But I mean, it's the simple things, and so it's probably going to be like small incremental changes that we can make either individually at the TMC level, working with suppliers, or hopefully industry-wide.
You said a lot already. I mean, so I'm interested on Keith's perspective from the supplier side.
Yeah, so I think you make very valid points, both of you, in terms of there are some content differences out there. Obviously, different channels have different restrictions and rules and character limitations and things that we comply with as we distribute to different channels and different partners. And what you're doing is you're trying to bring all of those together in a single display and marry it all together in a way that it wasn't sent out for that particular purpose. So that could be a bit problematic, and I think you're feeling it. But certainly I think that is something that needs to be addressed. I think the point you raised about overwhelm is another real point. From my perspective, if the displays are value-led, I know some of them do a pretty good job disclosing all of the information that applies to a specific rate. Others don't, right? So there's this evolution that's taken place where booking tools have been evolving. Once we get to a place where everyone has equal capabilities and everything is going to be fully disclosed, I think that will be great. It'll reduce a lot of the issues and the noise. It will be good to see less focus on rock bottom price, particularly when full disclosure is not there, and more focus on not showing everyone everything, but highlight here, this is the most valuable room for your particular stay, because this room, although it may not be the absolute lowest, it's number one, your corporate negotiated rate, which has some value, negotiated amenities included, those are going to be delivered, you'll be recognized as a loyal user, everyone gets credit versus giving away the credit from a transparency perspective. So I think there's a lot of things to consider in terms of how we move forward.
So I think I have the responsibility to bring the buyer perspective into the conversation. And looking at what Christine Corrigan said, she answered that she's observing an increased cost because it can come with unexpected cancellation terms often embedded in what appear to be a cheaper rate or same room. And she also explained that rate attributes may not always display consistently between rate sources, making it difficult for travelers to compare rates and end up with mismatched expectations, missing attributes like loyalty points, recognition for loyalty, a status upgrade, etc.
I agree with her.
I mean, that's not acceptable, right? I mean, it's really not. And I don't think, we're going to get there with like complete standardization, like no one's talking about, I haven't heard the word NDC here today, which is awesome. There is no, there's no like future NDC for hotel that is expected to be the white knight coming in and saving us. But I think the responsibility from the hotels to really be sending accurate representations of what these rooms include, what the rates include, that's the hotel's responsibility. And then on the distribution and agency side, like there's no excuses. We have to be able to parse that information to be able to get the traveler to be 100% comfortable with that they're booking what it is they actually think they're booking.
I totally support your argument. I cannot say another thing, but now it's the moment of truth. So I need to know from each of you if you think that multi-source platforms have favored choice versus transparency and booking integrity so far. So I just need a yes or a no.
I mean, I'm going to say yes, speaking for what we're doing, but
Okay.
For the whole industry, maybe hard to answer that.
Good. Amra?
So the question is, do you think they've favored choice over transparency?
Yes. Over.
Historically, yes, but I'd say no. At this point, we're past that.
You want to change your answer?
Well, I mean, the context is we're doing a good job balancing the two, and
Okay.
I think the industry is moving to that. So sorry if that's kind of a half-assed answer.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's a yes or a no, but what about you, Keith?
My answer is yes and no. Yes. Yes and no.
It's a really hard question.
It is a hard question. It's a very, very difficult question to answer. especially in just a simple yes or no. Yeah, I think there are some partners out there that absolutely have favorite choice. You know, they've attempted to cram everything in a display as possible, and nothing else matters. You know, as long as they have found the absolute rock bottom lowest price in the market. And then others are a bit more thoughtful about how they apply that, and so they favor a bit more transparency. They're better at disclosure. They're better at tracking in some cases. So I think it's a bit of a mixed bag. I think my answer is yes and no.
And can you disclose any names of who are doing it?
No
right?
names, and I'll take back the statement about draconian as well. So.
Okay, so now it's your turn to tell us if the multi-source paradox has been favoring choice versus transparency. So we would really appreciate if you can scan the QR code. You're going to be asked, what role do you play into the corporate travel distribution space? So we understand where your answer is coming from, because it can be completely different, and we have seen it here with the panelists, right? Yeah. So you will not see the answer on the screen just because I want to keep the intrigue. And if you want to know the answer, you need to come to me in the lunch break or download the presentation when Hedna sends it. So in the meantime, I can have access to it to see if you are already answering. So 50% of you are suppliers, 50% technology partners. Interesting. Now we have TMCs, GDS. This is becoming interesting. So you have some more time to answer, but the answer is, I thought it was straightforward. It's either yes or no, and why. So you support your answer with an argument that could add any value to the conversation. That would be great. So we move on anyway, and I think you have mentioned some of the things, right? So if we're facing a paradox, how do we fix this situation? And the first one answering was Christine, and she said that standards would really play a key role in fixing this situation. Standards when it comes to how the rate is presented, what are the different attributes, what are the costs and everything. And I think coming to the points that you have discussed, right? So apparently you are on good track, but still some gaps in there. So here is more about how do we fix those gaps, right? So I would like to hear your inputs as well on how are you facing these gaps and fixing them.
I think, you know, it's the approach to how we're, you know, consuming the different content sources, making sense of them, deconstructing and essentially using technology to create the right offers. You know, again, like the structured content, there's some things that we're in control of, some things that we're not. So it has to be deep partnership with our, you know, supply partners and intermediaries to really get to achieve what we want.
Yeah, and it's the standards. I would say if there's one thing that we need standards, we need validation done on that content. And we've talked a lot about the OTAs in this conversation. OTAs actually do this really well. The content comes through really clean from the OTAs. GDSs, my friends, that's where we struggle, honestly. And when we're talking about this conversation about OTA rates, there's a whole wealth of different types of rates out there. There's the corporate negotiated rate, there's the consortia rates, there's the public rates, there's the loyalty rates. And how do we get that all structured to come through in a really clean way so that, you know, customers don't have surprises when they check in. They know what they're buying.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, like, I just slightly would tweak that. My perspective is a slight disagreement in that I don't know if we're going to get standards. So some of it is just going to have to be, what are we going to do about it?
Yeah, and I agree.
Yeah.
And we can't sit on our hands and wait until some governing body comes in and creates standards.
And it's a great point about how, you know, you sort of depend on who's dependable in many cases. And like in a previous panel talking about, you know, why did ChatGPT choose Booking.com and Expedia to be their first travel integration? It's not just because of the breadth of content, which was one of the comments, but also because of the structured content coming in.
Yeah, and I think AIs, I mean, we could go on, we're probably going to run out of time, and I'm not giving Keith a minute to talk, although I have comments about your conversation too. But, we talked about booking tools and getting things clean in booking tools, but that's not where the future is. Future's in AI, natural language conversations are going to happen. And so we have to have that structured content for that to work well. Anyway.
And I think that's when things might get better, right? When you see more AI brought into the booking path, whether it's the traditional tool or some app of some sort or something like that. But I think from our perspective, what we have been doing actively for the past several years is just working with our partners, identifying where we see gaps and where we see issues, work with the partners. We've had lots and lots of conversations to say, listen, you are not fully disclosing, differences between these rate types. It's purely price-led. You've got to put a flag on our rates to say that these are loyalty enabled and these are not, right? So that the traveler at least understands that and they can make the choice on their own versus being sort of, I'm not going to say baited, but being misled into booking something and they didn't really fully understand exactly what they were getting themselves into. In some cases, they don't understand that the rates that they're booking from third parties are fully prepaid and non-refundable. To me, that's inexcusable. Those things shouldn't happen. They should know up front that those are the terms and conditions that they're signing up for. And in some cases, they're okay with it, right? In some cases, they need that, in fact. But it's got to be disclosed. We shouldn't receive calls after the fact to say, didn't know I booked a non-refundable rate. Help me with this, et cetera, et cetera. So
Amen.
we get that all the time. Thank you.
And I think, Kate, you mentioned something before about accrediting the bookings to the OTA rather than the corporation.
Yeah, I mean,
so what is the impact there and what can be done to fix that situation?
To me, that's a huge issue. I think, and if listen, I don't know if I would give my production to another party, right? I don't think I would give my transactional credit to someone else. And that's what happens, right? So from our perspective, we see what the corporation books in certain channels. We see what what portion of that went through the TMC and their contribution. And then everything that is booked by that corporation through that TMC on an OTA all gets credited to the OTA. So there's a certain portion of volume that we just don't see. It's not transparent to us. Who is the actual customer downstream? Who actually drove that business to us? Yeah, they may have saved a few bucks here and there, but I think there's bigger implications when you look at what we know about that corporation and the size and the volume that represents from our perspective versus theirs. So I think that's a bit of an issue.
Yeah, and I guess that's bringing friction to the negotiation table when you are negotiating the annual volumes or
Correct.
rates and everything, right? So you end up in a catch-22 situation. Yeah, right. So if you are not awake, you should get awake because I'm asking you another question. So QR code time for you. So we did an effort to put together their answers in a more structured way. So you can tell us what is your preferred fixing strategy. You have a choice of 4 different options. You can only choose one. We cannot accept yes and no on the same one in here, the same situation, right? So we want to understand from the audience and different roles that you play in the corporate travel distribution space, if you think standards are required, more clarity, transparency, or booking integrity. So we can really act upon that as a community, right? And just the final thing is, if you had one key takeaway from this discussion, what would that be?
I think we're moving away from all caps character limitations. We just need a consumer grade booking experience. That's what we'll get to.
I think multi-sourcing is not going away. In fact, I think it's growing. We're looking at more sources. Do we need to bring in content, that brings in different properties? We talked a lot about rates, but it's also about properties that may not be listed in the GDSs. And that's just going to make it more and more complex. So it's what we have to do, and it's what we will do.
For me, I'll say that I agree multi-source is not going to go away, but it's got to get better. I think if it gets better, let's all work together. Let's work with our partners. Let's make it as productive as possible. And our mission is really to improve the guest experience, and I think that extends to from time of booking until post-checkout. So we just need to make sure that that whole booking and check-in process is as smooth as possible. So we have a vested interest in making sure that we get this right.
Great. So you want to say something?
I was just going to say, I'm very happy that Keith said that he thinks it's not going away. We just announced a new OTA partnership today, so thanks for saying that.
Did you really?
Go ahead.
Sorry for getting that cheeky comment in there, but we just announced a new OTA partnership today, so
Welcome.
check the trades.
You want to say anything else or just done?
Well, I can't let him have the last word. No, I'm just kidding.
So I would say thank you. We had very interesting conversations together. Thank you, everyone. I think multi-source is here to stay, and the challenge is what value each of us bring to the table. So that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.